Sharon, welcome to Be Human.
Thank you, Jennah.
So lovely to have you here.
I'm very excited.
Me too.
Yeah. It feels great actually being part of someone else's conversations and podcasts. So I'm really looking forward to doing this with you.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you.
So we spoke about before we pressed record. We're going to get right into it.
Oh, yeah. Let's do it. I don't shy away from that.
That's why you're here. So your life, your podcast, Let's Talk DXB.
Yeah.
It focuses on real conversations with real people.
Yeah.
And I've heard you speak about how people, including yourself, can really put on a front, yet a screaming inside.
Yeah.
So I want to talk to you about the moment or around the time where you realized that that is how you were living, what you were doing, and how did it become a defining moment for you in terms of changing and transforming your life and a point of focus?
Oh, gosh, yeah. You've just given me like goosebumps because I've been doing a lot of obviously self-discovery and self-healing. Yeah. I think my first answer, when you said that, I was like, well, it has to be my divorce, right? The first episode's Divorced in Dubai. That's when I was screaming and needed to release. But then actually now that I've done a lot of work over the past 2.5, 3 years, probably the first defining moment of putting on a front has been quite a lot through like my, childhood and teenage and adulthood, actually. So I don't think it was the divorce. Divorce triggered a lot, I think, when it's like a boil up of many things. But, if we go back to my upbringing, I'm middle child. I always giggle about middle child syndrome because I definitely have it. And, it's allowed me to be independent, a bit more adventurous. I have I shoulder a lot of responsibility for others. And that with that shouldering, I suppress. So everyone else needs Sharon and I suppress what Sharon needs.
Ooh.
So I think it's been a build up of like, not using my voice to really talk about what I need. And that's over the years. And then like everything, it becomes a boiling point, right? So I think my boiling point would have been my divorce when I'm not going to pretend anymore. I'm not going to be that strong Sharon. I'm hurting. I need to cry. I need to cry publicly. I need to vocalize how I feel. And I think it came to that crunch point of just knowing that my marriage wasn't going to make it until us being 90 and, watching our children grow. And I was doing a lot of pretense. I'd put on my heels, I'd put on my work dress and I'd go to the office, but I'd maybe slept for 2 hours or, I'd been awake just, going over and over and what's my new life going to look like? And that was the boiling point where I was like, it's been years of Sharon being okay for everybody else, but not okay for myself. And I think that was my trigger of now working through and releasing and becoming lighter. So, I think the answer to that question it's probably been way back actually, but I've suppressed and I've put on that pretense for so long. And then you get to a point where it gets too much. And it just happened to be the breakdown of my marriage, which made me just release, which is not my usual approach as well. So a lot of people were like, whoa, that was heavy. Like you've carried this for so long. So, I would say that was the answer.
Yeah, to my understanding, even the breakdown of your marriage took a little bit of time.
Yes.
Do you remember sort of that moment where it really shifted from Sharon silencing herself to transmuting into a woman that will no longer do that?
Yeah, I do. Because it was, I'd been divorced for a period of time and I was in, I would say, my survival mode. I have a small boy. I need to rebuild. I need to find a house. I need to get a new car. I'd started a new job literally 2 weeks in. So there was more than enough distractions for me to then keep me going. And I've always been that, raised to be strong and you can do it. And luckily that hyper independence of me kicked in and allowed me to rebuild what I needed for myself and my son. But it was my first Christmas without, my ex-husband, without family. I think I intentionally was trying to be this tough person that I don't need anyone. I'm going to do Christmas alone and it'll just be me and my son. And he'd fallen asleep during the lunch because we're quite a big family. We're big on Christmas. We would normally spend it. I wouldn't be alone over Christmas. But I think I was trying to prove or maybe punish myself in some way indirectly to be like, this is your reality. You're by yourself. So I didn't travel home and I didn't really impose myself into friends or other families that I probably could have. So I'd had my Christmas lunch and it was just me. I'd done a big dinner as well for one person. My son had fallen asleep, so I didn't even get to do it with him. And I was fine. And then I was washing up and I realized I washed one plate, one glass, one fork, one knife, and I broke. I just was sobbing. I was like, I'm alone. Like, I'm no longer married. I don't have my family dynamic. It just triggered so much. And then I think maybe about 2 weeks after, there was just a conviction to be like, this is not normal. Stop it. Like, stop telling yourself that you're okay and you can do it. And it's not normal. Grieve it, grieve the loss of that. I loved being married. I loved the unity in marriage. I loved having that person, So I wasn't grieving that. And then I sat there and I was like, no more, I'm not going to do this anymore. I need a platform to talk about it, which is not my usual approach. Strong Sharon, doesn't show emotions, doesn't cry often, is there for everyone else and has got good advice, but not myself. So I think after that Christmas lunch and after that breakdown and after the internal, call it female intuition, I'm a Christian. A lot of it was like, I was convicted by God to be like, open your mouth, challenge yourself, feel uncomfortable in it, but talk on it. And then I messaged my cousin who did the first episode with me. And I was like, I think I want to do a podcast. I've never done podcasting before. We're both not very open people as well. So she knows me so well. She's known me for like 30 plus years. And she had traveled. I was like, when you get back, I found a studio. Let's just conversate about the season I'm in. And she was like, are you sure? I think she was like, are you crazy? Are you drunk? Are you sure? Like, what is happening? I was like, I'm just going to record it. No one has to and even it was a way for me to tell her things. Like, she's known me. I call her my cousin, but we're like sisters, She's known me since my childhood. And I unraveled so much in that conversation that she didn't even know.
That's what was surprising to me, because I watched that episode on YouTube. I highly recommend it. Very vulnerable. And it surprised me that she was sitting there and she was looking at you. She's like, I didn't know a lot of what you're speaking to. What was that shift like for you? Because that's huge. Like, you're speaking to me about how this pattern of you silencing yourself, distracting yourself, being misindependent started as a responsibility from such a young age. How did it feel to sit in a room and just be like, you know what, I'm completely going to change who I am in this moment?
Do you know what it was? I think because I'd gotten to that boiling point that you talked about, and I was like, it was kind of like in a constructive way, just me releasing. I was just going, and it felt safe. Because that was what was interesting as well, is that I believe you only teared up right at the end.
I was like, girl, you got through so much.
I held it together, but this is like Sharon's like suppressing. Like, this is like me to a T. And even it's because she triggered me, because we're talking about my son. My son is always a trigger for me. I'm like, anyone that mentions my son in divorce, I'm like, but because I think I also knew that I needed to do this. I'd set my mind, and in my head, it was never going to be a public discussion. It was a way for me to release. It was a way for me to be brave as well, because it's not my usual style. And it was also,
well, I honored you in that, because you kept saying, I'm scared.
I was terrified. Terrified. And the thing is, which will throw people off, because looking at me now, I'm a people person. This I love. Like, I'm like, let's have a conversation. When it's me, my emotions, the vulnerability of me, never. Like, that's something that stays locked.
That's interesting, because I've actually got a note here. I heard you say, word for word, I'm not good with emotions.
No. Yeah.
Where do you land with that now?
I say completely different in the sense of I've definitely evolved. Again, everything's childhood as well. So I've come from, my mum is amazing, and her strength has helped me through this season for sure. She was here with me, and she's the one to be like, get up, we're going to find somewhere to live, get up. And I needed that, but I also needed the softness as well, because I needed to tap into the grief and the emotions. So I think as a child, I'm middle child syndrome, the responsible one, the one that my parents would come to, because Sharon's sensible and she'll get it done. So I didn't really get that space to be emotional and vulnerable. And I wore that, I think superhero syndrome, I wore that with like a cape. Like, everyone needs me and I'm the one that has to get it together. But then I'm like, but what about when I need me?
Totally.
And that's why.
I can really relate to this. I'm an only child, but I had a deep sense of responsibility from a young age as well. And for me, it was also very recently. I actually ended up getting, I'm a coach myself. I actually ended up getting a coach for me.
Wow.
And it's interesting because what came up for me was grief.
Yes.
It was grief. And it came out of nowhere. And it was one of the most liberating experiences I have had, particularly to have someone also there that's giving myself permission. They're holding the space and letting me just fall into the space.
Yeah.
I don't really know. I never really knew before that what that truly felt like. I have very good friends, but sort of what you're speaking to, I never gave myself permission to do that. I am the person that people come to for advice. I'm the rock in the friendship.
Yeah. And when you hold that title, so much, if you also feel like I can't crumble because all these people need me.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's weird.
Where is their sense of safety if if I don't have it together?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. So where do you land with that now in terms of being able to navigate? Because I assume you're still that person that people come to for beautiful advice.
Yeah.
How do you navigate now also looking after you in all of that?
Do you know what? When you said that, people do come to me for that, but I think they've also now seen the more emotional or the more
they're a bit more aware of you.
Correct. Yeah. Or like if I don't actually have that capacity in this season to hold your weight because I need to deal with my stuff, I think people have given me more grace, or I've set my boundaries, which was really, especially when it's family and you love them and you want to help everyone. There's times where I've had to say, I can't hold this for them. I don't think I'm the best person to hold this for them. I need to remove myself from X situation. Where before, deep dive, we're going to figure this out. It's the two of us. So I've had to really learn about being okay with not being that person and giving myself priority. And I had to give myself priority because I have a son. So I needed to be the best version of myself for my son. That was always my goal. Like, go through the ugly phase, go through the grieving, go through the shame. My thing was a lot of shame through therapy. Single mom, divorcee, Christian divorce, African culture divorce. There was loads of labels that I had to unpick because that was what was holding me and bottling me up. I don't want people to know I'm this. So I think once I'd worked through that, I think you also have to realize not everyone has the capacity in every season. And I'm even giving people grace to say, you probably won't be able to accept all that I'm going through now. So it's not you that I'm going to give this to, but maybe it's like, I can speak to this person.
Yeah.
So I think people are now everyone's like, you're glowing, you're different, you're lighter. Because I've done the work to be light. I've done the work. Any like course, any therapy, I'm like, I need to work through this. So I think people are seeing Sharon a bit differently.
Beautiful.
But not in a bad way. I think in a healthy way. Yeah.
Did any aspect of guilt come up for you in being it? Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah.
I was like, oh yeah.
Because I mean, I'm really leaning in because I feel that with myself as well. And, you know, in my experience recently of really looking after me, not everyone stayed around.
Yes. Yeah.
How did you work through that sense of guilt in not being able to be there for absolutely everyone and having that capacity now that you're looking after you?
Do you know, I feel like my guilt came in regards to my son. Like I'd failed him. He's not going to have that family unit. He's not going to have mum and dad in the house. And I was the one that chose to leave at the end of the day. Like maybe I could have stayed regardless of, you know, what had happened in that divorce. But I just needed it to be a healthy environment for me and my son. So I chose to leave. But the guilt of me leaving was what I had to process.
Wow.
Then also like the guilt of, I think what I came to terms with is not everyone is going to make it to the finish line with you.
Yeah.
Not everyone is going to see you through that season. And because it was such an intense season, I didn't really process that. I just accepted that, okay, I've lost this friend. Or, you know, the group that we used to be with as married couples, maybe I won't see them in the same way. But I've been quite fortunate that I've had decent people that have, you know, supported me and my son. So it didn't hit me until afterwards that, oh, I've lost that friend.
Wow.
And I have to accept that that friend was not going to, you know, she is not going to see Zane as he grows older, or she is not going to be a part of my life. And that's okay, because not everybody makes it to the finish line. I think that's the reality of life, right?
Yeah.
And as you change through different journeys and seasons, you might get new people that you never imagined that will come into your life and see it all the way to the end with you. And people maybe you've known for 15 years. And that is painful because that's like your norm, right? That person is your person. it doesn't work that way. I saw that in my husband, my ex-husband, I knew him for 10 years. We're not making it to the finish line together in that way.
Yeah.
But other than just raising our son together.
Well, I think that all comes back to where you said about childhood. It's like we have this adaptation for a reason, and that's to belong.
Yes.
And we learn at a very young age at times, unfortunately, that to honor us and our own needs means that we may lose connection with people.
Yeah.
And so we adapt.
So true. It's so true.
And we choose connection over authenticity.
Correct. Yeah, so that's so true.
It's a pretty big ride coming back to that.
Gosh, and it's so much learning around it. I always say, like, as an adult, what I've had to learn, I laugh because I'm like, what I've had to learn in 3 years, it's not even, the divorce is maybe a factor because that boiling point got too much. And it's like, but maybe what I could have learned 5 years ago, it just wasn't a triggering enough point for me, maybe.
Yes.
As an adult, rewiring, reprogram, understanding different friendship dynamics, having different circles of friends and knowing that this friend is good for dinner and lighthearted conversation. This friend is, I can cry with you, not feel embarrassed. You're not going to disappear on me because you're like, whoa, this is not the friendship I need. But accepting your different pockets of like your tribe as well and rebuilding a new tribe based on the season that you're in. That's taken me a lot to reprogram because I'm quite I tick this box and this has to stay the same forever. And then when that didn't happen in my life, I was like, oh,
you got to be careful what you attach yourself to because life will show you the opposite.
Oh, it's shown me. It's literally like shaking me up, Jennah, like Sharon.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like
that just gave me goosebumps.
Oh, I've learned
love in the deepest of ways.
Gosh, like life is not like that. And even it's interesting because my therapist is looking at me like, why do you not know that life is not like that? I was like, because I've been programmed that life should be, if I tick the boxes and I'm doing what I'm told and I work really hard, it will just be this way. She was like, no, you have to also adapt to the really difficult times, the breakdown of things, the loss of friendship, the loss of marriage, the loss of people as well, like the grief of losing parents or, family members. So I'm literally just, I feel like I'm going back to being like a teenager.
Totally.
And relearning things. Which I'm like, I'm an adult. I'm a woman. It's
I understand that. I've heard you speak about your upbringing in terms of your mother sort of sharing that you make relationships work.
Yeah.
How did you guide yourself in being able to move from such a strong belief of you make it work, basically no matter what, to not choosing that?
That was the hardest part, I think, because again, if I use more kind of the cultural side, in our culture, African culture, West African culture, I remember we did our traditional ceremony and all of the advice, you get elders that will come and advise and, maybe they've been married for years, happily married, I don't know, but they've been married for years. And you look at like, oh, they've got wise words, but they've seen a lot. And it's no matter what no matter what happens, you stay together. So when I first found out about the infidelity in my marriage, I sat there and I was like, okay, I didn't process, I suppressed and I just channeled my energy. And I think at that time I was about to be a new mum anyway. So I was like, I'm going to be a new mum. Let me just get through this pregnancy. Didn't really tap into what had actually happened. Didn't really know whether to believe it or not. Loads of different things. And that message of you make it work. Forgive him. You're a Christian. Forgiveness is needed. Culturally, you don't get divorced. Like what? Divorce and you're going to bring a child into this world? So I just used that to be like, stay. And then more things unraveled. And then everything in me was like, I just couldn't. I couldn't just make it work. I couldn't just stay in this.
Do you think that was intuition?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I say God, but there was a lot of female intuition in it. And again, I can't.
It's like a message.
Oh my gosh. Like I always said, everything in me was like, you need, like, this is it. This is it. And it's the scariest feeling and it doesn't make sense. And why would I do this? And there's a child involved.
Well, that is intuition, right? It's like it's not the rationality.
It doesn't make sense.
It's that really strong, potent one decision, but it just doesn't make sense.
And it won't shift.
And that's where trust and faith comes in, I think, in relation to God.
100%.
Yeah.
And it doesn't shift. It doesn't leave you alone. And you know what I battled with? And this is why I keep my mouth shut about people's relationships, because there's so many different dynamics. My very like fairy tale one way has taught me that marriage isn't always fairy tale in one way. And there's things that you do have to go through together and you do need to go through the ugly stuff. And if you come out the other side, I think it's a blessing. When I meet people that have gone through things in their marriage, maybe they've even separated and come back together.
Yeah.
That work is really beautiful and really hard. But I think for me, it was like, who am I? And this is when I started to uncover, who is Sharon? What are my morals? What do I stand for? What is actually my perception of marriage? You know, what type of marriage did I really want to be in? And, you know, where's my flexibility in it? And I started unraveling all of that. And there was just one thing for me. And a lot of people would look at me and be like, yeah, but was that enough to get divorced? I've had that. I've had a lot of male friends or, you know, people that have come across like, why would you get divorced over that? 10 years. But it comes down to your morals and your values. And my moral compass I just couldn't. It could be something else. We've had, you know, unfortunately, my ex-husband, you know, he lost his job a few times in Dubai. Very common. And I know it's a difficult thing. Didn't bother me at all.
Yeah.
I'm your wife. Whatever I make, you make, we'll get through it. You know, you've shown me that when you do have a job, you're hardworking. So it wasn't anything about questioning that. Where some women be like, you have to look after me. And if you can't, I'm going. So you know, everyone has their thing.
Absolutely.
My moral compass just couldn't shift that. I just couldn't. Yeah. So then I learned my boundaries, right? And then I learned what I could and couldn't accept. And it helps me to then be confident to say, you know, if I was to go into a relationship again, this is a big boundary. Believe me, this is a big boundary. And I've proven to myself that this is enough for me to walk away, for my sanity, for my health, and for my moral compass, and for my belief as well, you know, as a Christian. So yeah.
With people that were coming into your life, and I think in a loving way, it seems, imposing their sense of morality and values, did you ever question yourself in making that decision of walking away?
Yeah, I did. And I think probably I didn't tell many people. So my first episode, a lot of family members thought I was married for like a year. Sharon's typical. I don't talk about myself. Yeah. So I did that intentionally because I knew a lot of the narrative, which is not coming from a bad place, but equally they're like, being a single mom, you know, you're not even near home. Like, are you sure? Like, I get it would be a lot more worry and concern. Like, are you going to be able to do this? And equally, like, going through divorce is hard. Like, not having your person anymore is hard. Like, have you thought about this?
Yeah.
But I intentionally wanted to block out external noise and sit with myself and sit with the decision and walk through, what does it look like every day, just me and Zayn? What does it look like me having to work with this child? What, you know, all of that. Because as soon as I let external influences, either the decision may have been prolonged or I may not have made that decision, but am I truly healthy and happy? Because at the end of the day, it's the two of us in the house. People will be there, you know, but they're not in it with me. The reality is they're not feeling what I feel. So I guarded myself quite a lot. So I landed at a place where I knew I'd be able to go through that hardship and do it alone. Other than like, obviously my mom and, you know, and obviously to be fair, my mom would never culturally, she could never tell me to leave my marriage. It's like the worst thing you could ever tell your daughter. But she's like, find your peace. Beautiful. And she knows I'm that kind of tough person. But I think when she saw me, when she looked at me, she was like, okay, whatever you need to do, I'll do it with you. And that was all she said about it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's deep.
Yeah. It's taking me back, Jennah. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
There's some strong words in that.
Yeah.
Earlier in the conversation, you spoke about shame. I want to talk to you about this because I feel like you and I we're in similar positions, yet almost opposite sides.
Yeah.
You're, I believe, 36?
37.
37. Yeah. Single mom, divorced.
Yep.
I'm 35, unmarried, childless.
Yes, yeah, okay.
Which I have had some shame around, which I've been exploring and working through myself. How did you begin to move through the shame that you felt in relation to coming out of a marriage as a single mother?
Do you know what? I think therapy, to be honest. And I've never done therapy. And again, a lot of like taboo in our cultures. If you go through therapy, you're crazy, which is the worst language to use. But it was. Wow,
they really say crazy?
Yeah. Like, you know, in that way, like there must be something
wrong with you.
Why would you go and speak to someone? Especially in my like more immediate family, we don't talk about our feelings or we don't share with people. We barely share within our, you know, our close group. So for You telling a stranger something, why? And also, you're a Christian, just, tell God and pray over it. And I truly believe in the power of prayer, etc. But he also brings talented people, skilled people, the right people to help you navigate things as well. So it's important to tap into that as well. So my shame, really, that word was like, my therapist was like, I think you're holding a lot of shame. I was like, no, I'm not. She was like, why don't you tell the mothers at Zane's school, like when they ask you why are you not telling them you're a single mom? I was like, I can't tell them that. She was like, you literally freeze up when I'm like, have you told his teacher, that his dad's not around? So they accommodate things like Father's Day. And now I have open conversations where I was like, I can't tell her that. What? No, why would I tell her that? She's like, you're holding on to shame of that title. You need to release that. So I went away with it and I didn't take her advice. I was like, I'm not doing that. And then I think because the more, again, I was feeling suppressed and choked and like pretending to be someone, like people would ask me, oh, where's Zane? Oh yeah, he's fine. I'm like, I don't know. No, I don't know. So I had to start talking about it. So, I spoke to his teacher, Father's Day is coming up. His dad doesn't live here. What does that look like? How would that look? They do more for Mother's Day, which I think is great, but also bad. She's like, we're not doing a concert, but we will create something. But there's other children, maybe a similar dynamic where their father's not around for whatever reason. So we're mindful of that. And it just put me at ease. And I was like, that wasn't so hard.
Wow.
So kids' birthday parties, maybe the mum and dad are both there. It's always just me, right? And one lady asked me, oh, Zane's dad, we haven't seen him. Yeah, I'm divorced. He doesn't live here. That wasn't so hard. And I think the more I just started to have conversations around it. Zane's first birthday party when he was 3. And I use it as a milestone because I was like, I made it to 3. As a single mom, we're going to do a birthday party. And I celebrate. We're quite big on birthdays. But then I was like, I'm going to have to cut the cake alone. Wow. Everyone's looking at me.
It's interesting with those thoughts, isn't it?
Oh, it can drive
so
you
insidious.
Insane. Yes. And I'm like, when we take pictures, it's just me. Lucky my mum and my sister was around. But that played on my mind. Do I want to do a birthday party? Wow. People are going to see his dad. Why would his dad not be at his 3rd birthday party? But I forced myself to do it. I was like, I have to do it because this is the reality. There will be these things.
When you say that people are going to see, what is it that you feared at that time that they would think about you?
More so like the titles for Zane. Poor kid. He hasn't got his dad here. What happened? Why is she a single mum? I think it was more just, what are they going to think about my son? How are they going to judge him? And when I say it out loud now, I'm like, really? Really, Sharon? But you tell yourself a lot of stuff. If you don't work through it, it's quite dangerous.
Well, this is always the benefit of hindsight, isn't it? But we have to learn the lessons.
Yeah, I was literally, and when you're a person that internalizes, and you're only thinking your own thoughts, and you're not rationalizing it with someone externally in a safe place, because they'll be like, who cares? They're coming to eat cake. They want their kids, but most of them are focused on chasing their own kids. Like no one's looking at you in that way. So I had to just take the advice of my therapist and tell people, like when it was appropriate, not like, hey guys, I'm divorced, hey, but when it was appropriate, when people ask, don't shy away from your reality. Beautiful. And you know what? I've had the most support, the most love, the most people that love Zane, his personality. Like I haven't been blocked out of anything as a single mum that I was telling myself. But I think also culturally is a big stigma about being divorced and being a single mum. So maybe a lot of the shame was like what I've heard through my upbringing rather than external people. Yeah,
it's interesting because I feel like when you speak about this earlier in where we started this conversation, right? This element of having a front yet screaming inside. It's like those moments that just like made me picture coming to that birthday party and seeing you, and I'm sure there would have been smiles and Sharon's cutting the cake and oh my gosh, happy birthday. Yeah, inside there's this internal monologue of 100. You being like, I'm all alone, I'm cutting the cake. What are people going to be thinking about? Isn't it fascinating?
It's crazy.
That's exactly what I'm passionate about, is that element of like to be human, right? And that's why it's so beautiful as you're speaking to about your sense of empowerment and I feel like sense of freedom and liberation and just being able to own those thoughts. And I'm not surprised that you're connecting deeper with people, because that sense of vulnerability, I feel like, provides a safe space for other people to show up and be able to show what's screaming inside of them.
Yes. It's so, do you know, the power, authenticity and vulnerability, which were words where I'd be like, oh, what do you mean? Like, that's so emotional. Like, toughen up, be strong. I've had like people that have known me for a long time. They're like, I feel like I've only now known Sharon.
Yeah.
And that threw me off a lot. I know I was quite guarded. Like, I will give you my time. You can, I'm that type where, in the office when they're like, this is confidential, don't tell anybody. I'm the tight-lipped person. Like, I will keep your secret, even if 100 people know.
Yeah.
And I valued that about myself as well. Cause I'm like, I want to feel like a trusted person. But then equally they're like, well, you're not giving me you. Like, you're not sharing with me. Like, you're willing to kind of hold and keep my secrets and advice. But where are you? So when someone said like, I've known you for 10 years, but I only just now know you, I was like, well, this has been a problem then.
Yeah.
This is not okay to know someone for that long and they feel like, and they know that I've always been guarded. Or people will be like, Sharon, you're such a private person, but now you're doing this. I love it. So
beautiful.
They saw that kind of
the veil come down.
Yeah. And then it's all just released.
Yeah.
So I think the power of authenticity, which is now what I'm discovering, the power of vulnerability. And I say that in safe spaces. Like, I'm still like, it's not everybody that I can share things with, but I'm open
I mean,
to.
that's one of the biggest lessons. I remember Brené Brown came out with all this stuff around authenticity and vulnerability in her book, and she laughed about after publishing it because she's like, oh, I forgot to put the bit where it says, like, don't just go out to anyone and just tell them your deepest, darkest secrets.
Yes,
like, not everyone can hold that for you and
or have the
receive
good
that.
intentions
You've
around
got to
it.
have some discernment with it.
100%. Yeah. So I still have that and I'm grateful for that.
Yeah.
But I'm like, it's okay to tell people I'm divorced. And if it opens up a conversation with someone else is struggling with it or making a decision, and even, there's people like, I'm not like, go and get divorced, everybody, because like I said, I love marriage and I hold on to it. And my decision was my decision. But seeing people work through it or whatever, but being able to create a safe space where they feel they can talk to me about whether they're thinking about it, whether they're not, or, other single mothers. And today was really hard and I'm tired and having that, I'm open enough to be that person that they can sit with if they choose to, where before, no. I just like, I'm fine. Okay, have a good day. And then that's it. So it's so important. It's so important. I've really learned that. Yeah. It's a shame it's quite late, but I think you go through life and you learn things at different stages.
Oh, forever.
Yeah. Forever. I'm like, this is the end now.
This is not the end, Sharon. I'm sorry to tell you that.
Like, this isn't the end of my
You're just
learning.
warming up. I mean, if you're going to be a leader in vulnerable conversation, I always say to my clients, like, be careful what you wish for.
So true, isn't it?
Yeah, I worked with my clients in deep shadow work, and it's like life will give you.
True,
you got to move through whatever you feel like you would like to be able to connect with others through.
That's really good advice.
Yeah, so just be mindful of where you're putting your focus.
I'm done. Like, this is my capacity. But that's so true, because I think then people can appreciate that what you're or my pain.
People can feel it.
Yeah.
People can really feel the difference between coming back to authenticity and intuition. If you're speaking from experience or if you're speaking from something that you've read in a book or heard, it's just completely different.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, like even when you spoke to me before about your mum saying, like, find your peace, like the way you looked at me, I could feel it within her that she had something that she was speaking through herself to you.
That's exactly it. Unspoken words, like that one sentence, that was it. That was it. We didn't talk about anything else.
Yeah, it gives me goosebumps. Oh
honestly,
my gosh.
Like, you've taken me back to that. And I was like, that was enough. Like, I saw it in her face. She didn't even need to explain to me why she said those words, but I got it. And I was like, okay, then I'm going to do this. And I think I needed that approval because I'm that child where I've always been seeking approval. Yeah. So I was like, I needed to hear that from my mum to know that it's okay.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Which I actually wrote a note about that today because I heard when you were speaking on your first podcast, some advice that you had given yourself was just as simple as it's okay. And I actually was on a podcast the other day as a guest and they asked me what's the advice I would give to my younger self going through a difficult time. And out of everything I've learned and all like the profound things and everything, it's exactly what I said as well.
I get it.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yes, because it silenced a lot of the voices.
Yeah.
You have to kind of just reassure yourself that it's okay that you want to make this decision. As hard as it is, as much as it goes against, what you've been programmed, what you've been told. And also it's okay that you're in this season. It's a season. It's okay. At the time, it was like no, my life is over. Like it literally, I was like, no, like this is like my
dark night of the soul.
The worst thing ever. But then when I gave myself that grace to be like, yeah, it's hard. It's not what you wanted. It may not seem normal. You know, everything that was like going against my faith and my intuition, but it's okay.
Yeah.
And that was all I needed for myself. That was all I needed. Yeah, it was enough.
I've heard you speak about owning yourself.
Oh, yeah.
So I assume the Sharon before all of this happened owned herself.
Yeah.
I also assume after all of this happened that you now really
I own it.
Own yourself.
I can say
What
that.
is the difference? Because I think this is important. I feel like a lot of people can relate to the Sharon before all of this experience.
Yeah.
What is it that you've learned from looking back at that Sharon that I'm sure was very confident?
Yes, yeah.
And now like is confident but at such a deeper level?
Yes. Do you know what? This me now, I'm not pretending for anyone else. And I'm like, I want to do this. I don't want to do this. I want to talk about this. I don't want to talk about this. I want to wear braids. And even this is a silly thing. Like we used to have braids a lot as a child. It's an easy thing. And then yet we were bullied about it. You know, like people would always want to like put their fingers in. And as I grew, I was like, I'm never wearing braids. Like, oh no, like maybe it triggered something through childhood of not really being able to embrace my culture. Like braids are very common.
Yeah.
As an adult, wearing braids, even for me, was like, I don't care. I want to wear braids. You know, like it's small things like that where for a long time, I was like, I need to fit this mold. I need to look like this. I don't feel comfortable really embracing this in me. So there's a bit of like, I don't care in a respectful way.
I get it.
And I think that's what everyone's seeing. They're like, Sharon, you're glowing. And I was like, yeah, because I don't care. I've done the work, you know, like any like therapy, even church, you know, we did a divorce cares course. And I was surprised that there's other people in church that have gone through divorce. And we're sitting here and we're talking about from a biblical stance, you know, the terms of divorce and why is it not. I had to rewire everything, you know, I had to work through from Christianity, from culture, from, you know, me as a woman. So there is an element of feeling light because I don't care.
Yeah.
And that freedom is the best thing. Yes, I was confident before. Now I'm literally fully embracing me. I'm fully embracing the ugly part of me. I'm fully embracing the titles that I used to hate saying. I'm a single mom, I'm divorced. This is my season. And it's a season, you know, and it's a season that I've done the work. I've checked myself and I really wanted to check myself in it. Like, where did I go wrong? What did I not see? How can I be better? So I'm like, yeah, I feel so free. And I think that's what people are seeing that they have not seen for years.
It's so ironic, isn't it? You and I were speaking about this before we pressed record. I was telling you just how absolutely beautiful you are and how much you are glowing. And it's so interesting because you come from this space where, I don't want to do this. This could be ugly and you're overthinking everything and how will everyone else perceive me? And yet your most profound self is the self right now.
Right?
Isn't it phenomenal?
It's
and
phenomenal.
I too have experienced very similar things. And once you take that pressure off and that sense of expectation of what you think other people think about, that sense of freedom, it radiates and it penetrates.
It's amazing.
People feel that. And that level and depth of authenticity is what lights up a room and makes anyone look profoundly attractive, being so deep in who you are and connected to who you truly are and giving yourself permission to live that.
You're completely right. And I think anyone that's having to go through that journey of self-discovery, and when you get to that point, and obviously I'm human, I still get these bits of like, but it's not, I can work through it. It's not weight that I carry for ages and like overthink, etc. I'm like, just do it. Or don't do it, or whatever it may be. But that's a continuous process because obviously I've gone through like 30 plus years of thinking a certain way to now being like, oh, I'm going to be like this. I feel like I'm going through like 16 all over again. Everyone's like, they're like, you're a lot younger than you say you are. I was like, yeah, I've gone back in time because I'm like literally. It happens.
People, their energy changes the way in which they look.
Yeah. It's just so powerful. It's really so powerful. And I'm just so grateful. Now I can say that journey, which is, it's still tough. And, you know, sometimes I get those triggers of like, oh, I got divorced, you know, but I can say like, purpose, the pain has led to purpose, and you know, life will bring you these things that like literally are gut wrenching. And I always say it's a thin line, and it's not easy. Like I sit here now, you know, I used to watch podcasts where people maybe are in this seat and I'm like, ugh, she's pretending, like how is she here speaking so lightly and laughing like it's dark and it's hard. And I used to hate when people are like, oh, you'll come out a better person. I'm like, no, I won't. It's hard. But when you can, and when you can push through, and the resilience, and it takes a lot. And I hated this language that people used to tell me. I'm like, getting up in the morning and facing my reality is too hard. Stop telling me it's going to get better. But somehow, some way, it can, and it does.
It does.
But it does take a lot to do that. So I don't want people to like listen and be like, oh, you don't get it. You know, I do get it. I completely get what it takes. And I'm just so grateful that God, my mindset, all of the pieces, the people that were there have helped me to tip to that way rather than the other way.
Beautiful. Yeah. A lot of your conversations and your podcast are focused on diversity.
Yes. Yeah.
And there is a theme around being a Black woman.
Yes. Yeah.
What does being a Black woman mean to you? Obviously, it's more than color.
Yes, correct.
What does it mean to you?
Do you know what? Now I can say that. I made the joke about my braids, but it's also embracing your culture. You know, I've fitted into a very corporate environment. Corporate world, and maybe it's, you know, language I've told myself, but equally it's experiences that I've had that maybe you wouldn't understand unless you were a Black woman. But I've definitely tried to dim down the vibrancy of my culture, dim down the creativity that we bring to it as well. I think now also being a Black woman for me is fully embracing my culture, who I am. And it's also, I think, accepting some of the narratives that we have culturally in our community and redefining them. You know, redefining what this may look like for a younger generation, you know, not normalizing everything, and sometimes taking things and really embracing that foundation that you've been raised on, bringing it into the workplace and not shying away from it, bringing it to, you know, different ethnic minorities, different minorities that maybe want to learn more about me and my culture, and being willing to share as well. I think you have to fully sit and just know your uniqueness of being a Black woman, you know, of whatever race as well. Just embrace the uniqueness of what you have and how you've been raised. And that can be brought into your everyday life. That can be brought into the workplace. Don't shy away from being that. Because I've always been quite a submissive person. I feel like I didn't fully show up, you know, in that way. And there's been small things where I'm like, yeah, this is me. This is me. This is my culture has shaped me. There's bits that I take and I fully embrace, and I will ensure that my son also accepts and embraces that if he wants to.
Beautiful.
And there's bits that I've had to redefine, you know, and I'm okay with that as well. Yeah.
Beautiful. I love it.
Thank you.
So circling back to where we started, you focus on real people having real conversations. What's real for you right now?
Oh, what's real for me is my reality. Living in my reality, not living in this pretense, accepting the ugliness. I think that's so important. When you say being human, before it had to be perfect, right? For me, it had to be in this box and it had to look like this and this is the perfect life. The ugliness is also perfect. Embracing that. Humans, like, there's going to be ugliness. There's going to be things that I have that I need to work on. There's going to be parts of me that are not so beautiful, but accepting that they are beautiful and unique. So I think that's all part of it as well. The good and the bad is fully part of it. And I think that for me is what I've had to learn and rewire and reprogram to say, it might look a bit messy, but this messiness it's okay.
It's part of our humanity.
Exactly.
You can't hide from it forever.
Yes. So I think that's
and
it.
life will reveal where you're not free. Life will, if you do not face the dark, if you do not face that to experience the light, you have to experience the dark. Life will give you an experience.
Yeah, whether you want it or not. Yeah, forced. And I think I was definitely forced. But I'm like, I've embraced that. And I think that has also taught me, like, through life as a, you know, as a mother, as I raise my son, I need to be more flexible in these things. I need to think a bit differently in different seasons. It can't just be one way. There's going to be ugly things and I need to be, you know, equipped to deal with the ugly things rather than panic or shut it down or suppress. So I think that's definitely what's taught me as well.
And how potent as a mother to be able to give that gift to your son.
Yeah. And this is why I'm so intentional with me doing the work, because I want him to feel like he can come to me with the ugliness.
Exactly.
And I'm not going to tell him off, or, you know, maybe I might have to tell him, but whatever it is, I have the capacity.
You have because you experienced.
Exactly. And that's it. Yeah, it's so important.
Thank you for this beautiful conversation.
Thank you.
It's been such an honor to connect with you.
Jennah, honestly, you've taken me back in such a healthy way. And, you know, again, like, you've allowed me to release. You know, I'm still trying to allow myself to do that. But where there's platforms like this, I feel so light. I feel like it's a therapy session. Thank you. I'm like, wow.
Well, this is the message that I think you and I both support, is being able to be completely ourselves in exactly what you spoke to, the dark, the light, the perfection, the messiness, all of it. And by us being able to be courageous and brave enough to be able to not only sit with that, but share that in a public setting, it gives other people permission to awaken
100%
to their own sense of freedom.
And what better gift, you know? For me, I'm like, if I can help somebody, or not even help someone, but maybe trigger a thought process of it's okay.
Yeah.
Especially when I didn't get that initially. I didn't give myself that grace. But if that voice is going to help someone to be like, oh.
Yeah. Beautiful. One final question.
Yes, yeah. I could be here forever. I love it. I'm enjoying it.
What does it mean to you to be human?
To be human, I think I'd go back to the same messaging. I think to be human it's the ugly. To be human it's the great parts as well. To be human is accepting and acknowledging the not so great parts of you, but also being willing to do the work to be better as well. But I think for me, because I've always had this linear approach of perfectionism, it has to be perfect, it has to look perfect in everything, in work, in friendships. But no, the ugly is also perfect. The ugly is also a part of me. You know, there's things that I have to work on. And I think if you own it and do the work, that's all part of being human as well. And it's a journey, right? You evolve. So I think that's my answer.
Thank you, beautiful.
Thank you.